Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Casio watch's Edifice EFV-100. That's right, EFV-100, you can see it down underneath there. This is a very interesting little watch, and it's one that I'm very glad I got a chance to get on the channel. And actually, first off, I want to thank very much my buddy Nathan. In addition to being a longtime supporter of the channel and a good friend, Nathan donated this guy to the channel in exchange for this going into the very next charitable giveaway. So thank you very much for that, Nathan. I appreciate that very much. Next thing, let's do some size measurement here. We'll go ahead and do this in millimeters because in the watch world, we get to use units that make sense. So we will do that. What we see here is that the overall width of the watch without the crown is 40. With the crown, we're looking closer to 43. Lug-to-lug distance is a very, very reasonable 46 millimeters here. The lug width on this looks to be about 20 millimeter here. And it is, by the way, aftermarket swappable lugs on there. And then the overall dial is 34 millimeters, and the thickness of it is a very slim, well, at least by modern standards, 11.1 millimeters. So there we go. There are your size measurements. Next up, this is a Casio watch. In fact, it says Casio under there, although you couldn't tell given that it's 12:15 at the time of filming this review. But anyways, Casio is a company that is reasonably well known for their digital watches, for instance, their G-Shock line and things like that, but I think should be equally well known for their analog watches because they have some amazing pieces, both in the lower range or on the higher end, like the Oceanus line that we see here and here. This is the Cachalet 52 or P2000, and this is the Oceanus S5000C. But anyways, Casio definitely does some higher end stuff and does some really nice stuff, and this is a really cool piece. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. This very interesting little watch here. The good side. Start with, this has a nice quartz movement. You can tell it's quartz because the hand is tick, tick, ticking along there, rather than a mechanical where it's going to have a smooth sweep or something like that. That's a nice thing. In fact, this is a good quartz movement because you can tell that adjusting for a little bit of parallax issues, the hand is more or less pointing directly at the individual markers there. That's a little detail, but it's one that I very much appreciate, and it's one that you don't always find, especially on the more budget side of that. You're also seeing no recoil or backlash, so it's not the case that the hand goes tick boy yoing yoing, tick boy yoing yoing, tick boy yoing yoing. I'm gonna just keep doing that because that amuses me. But anyways, it's not doing that. Instead, you can see it's making relatively authoritative ticks. And although my table is going boing yoing yoing, I'm working on that. Sorry about that, folks. The hand of the watch absolutely is not. It also has a quick set date function, which means that if I pull out the crown here, I can adjust the date very quickly by popping it this way, and now it is the 13th, or the 14th even. And in fact, if I pull it out all the way, this is a hacking watch here. So the second hand will stop, which allows you to set the time precisely, which is important. Well, okay, important. This is good for quartz watches because they will actually keep it precisely. One other thing to note as I'm doing this, by the way, is a screw-down crown. That's right, you can screw the crown in there, and that means that you end up with a reasonable water resistance on this guy. The battery life on this guy, this is not a solar watch, but the battery life on this is approximately 3 years, according to Casio, and it is a quartz watch, and I really genuinely believe that for most humans, quartz is the better choice. Certainly, you might get a lot more joy, or a little bit more joy, out of mechanical watches, but from a practicality standpoint, a watch that stops working if you take it off your wrist for a couple of days in the mechanical world is not as useful as one that you just throw in the box, and then you take it back out the next time you want to wear it, and it's still running, it's still set to the right time. And you get better accuracy, all kinds of things like that. So really, quartz watches are great, and this is a quartz watch. So there's that. Next thing, the size on this guy is nice. I already did all the measurements for it, but it is a reasonably svelte watch relative to a lot of what's out there, even from Casio. But relative to a lot of watches out there, it's reasonably small, so it'll get under a shirt cuff, no problem. It's not too big on the lug-to-lug distance, which again is, I think, the measurement that matters most in terms of wearability. I mean, even on my 6.5-inch wrist here, 6.75-ish inch wrist, this looks pretty reasonable, right? This is not a particularly overwhelming watch on the wrist, and I think it does pretty well, so that's good. And it is reasonably thin, too, so that's good, too. Next thing, water resist on this guy is 100 meters. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Nick, I don't go 100 meters deep anywhere. Why would I need that? Well, what that gives you is a margin of error, right? That means that as you wear this guy, and especially over time, the seals will start to break down a little bit. 100 meters will give you water resistance a lot longer than an equivalently rated 50 meter, or than a 50 meter or a 3 meter, 30 meter rating. This is just the way they should. All watches should be at 100 meters at this point. I'm sorry, I just feel that way. It's good to be able to protect the watch. So there's that. Next thing, this is a pretty legible watch for having a white face on there. Very often you can get it, by the way, with a black dial on there. But this guy, even with the white face, is quite legible because of the polish on the hands. Chances are the hands aren't reflecting anything white in your average circumstance, and so as a result, you're going to get good legibility even despite having a white face on there. Similarly, having the reflective indices is a very nice detail there. And then finally, on the good side, this thing is actually amazingly well finished for the price. Let me zoom in a little bit, and I can show you a little bit more closely what I mean here. I'll clean off the screen. So, okay, we can look, for instance, the hands, and we see that these hands are not flat at all, but they are bent hands. So the hand itself has actually been bent, and then they've done a little bit of loom, luminous compound there in the middle there. That's really excellent. Similarly, you get really nice finishing on the indices there. You get a nice little bit of polishing all over along this collar on the outside there, and that's not nothing. Even the mid links of the bracelet themselves are polished, and it's nice. It looks really, really nice. The sides of the bracelet are polished. Frankly, the only area of this watch that feels a little bit lackluster is the clasp, and you know what? That's not the part people are looking at anyways. So I feel like finishing wise, this is really, really nice. This is way above the norm at this kind of a price range, and that it brings me joy. So all that is the good, is that it's well finished for the price. It's quite legible for a white-faced watch. It's got 100-meter water resistance, a nice size, and a nice quartz movement. On the great side, the price is $60. At the time of watching this, or at the time of doing this, the price of this is $60 US. And you know what? Okay. I mean, don't get into watches, of course. That's a dumb idea. But if you're gonna, $60 is a good place to start. And stop. Do not get into watches. Anyways, but it's a really nice price. So there's that. Next thing on the bad side, or actually, let's move on to the bad side. Bad side, to start with, unrealistically at this price point, this is missing some of the things that can make a higher-end Casio quartz piece a little nicer. For instance, you don't get solar charging, which means this is going to need a new battery every couple of years. Mind you, the back is pretty easy to remove and screws in, so you can do that yourself. But still, that's a thing. And there's also no radio control, meaning it's not talking to the atomic clock, nor is there Bluetooth allowing it to get the time from your phone. You have to manually set the time on this guy. Oh no, horror of horrors. But it is definitely a little bit of a step down, even from some of the G-Shock units at equivalent price points. So there's that. Next thing, this has a mineral crystal. The crystal on the top of this guy is not sapphire, it is a mineral crystal. That means it's going to scratch a little bit more easily, but it also means it's going to be less shatter resistant. Generally, I prefer sapphire, but at $60, I don't care. It's okay. Next thing, the clasp on this guy, and the bracelet generally is loud. Here, I'll zoom out a little bit. Yeah, unfortunately, this is a loud watch. Just as I'm wearing this guy, you just kind of hear this a lot more than you hear other watches, and especially the clasp here, being a little bit of kind of tinny metal. The whole thing is a little bit loud and tinny, especially in the bracelet there. I imagine it would be much better if it were on a NATO strap or something like that. I bet a lot of people will do this on NATO. But still, there's that. And then finally, I'm going to see if I can play this for you here, but this ticks like crazy. I don't know whether that got through to the microphone. Very often these things get filtered out, but this definitely does have a tick to it. It's not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. There were definitely, like, Timex's tick a lot louder than this guy, but relative to, for instance, the Oceanus line, which is not fair because this watch is $60 and this watch is $1,800. But still, you definitely hear the ticking a lot more loudly, and so as a result, if you're laying in bed, for instance, or even just sitting in my office quietly wearing this guy for review, it was like, this is a little on the louder side. Not the end of the world, but to me, all that is the bad is that it's a little bit of a loud ticker. The clasp is definitely loud, mineral crystal rather than sapphire, and again, at this price, whatever. And it's missing some of the higher-end quartz features, but again, at this price, whatever. on the ugly front. There's only one ugly issue here, and that is, unfortunately, the Loom. I'm going to go ahead and charge this off camera with a reasonable flashlight. And what you can see here is that it does have Loom, and the Loom is serviceable. It's okay, I guess, but it's just not amazing. It doesn't last very long. You can see here the hour markers are already fading. Luckily, the hands stay loomed a lot longer, and so chances are if you wake up at 3 a.m. and you look at your watch, what you're going to see here is the hands and nothing else, or maybe a little tiny sliver of something off the hour markers, but already the hour markers are pretty much gone. And if we compare that to a watch with much better Loom and a much higher price tag, just saying, not saying I'm being realistic here, but if we compare that, for instance, to here, we see that the Loom is just like bazam, going and going and going all damn day long. So this Loom is pretty weak. And to me, that's the one downside to this guy. That's serious, is that the Loom is just not what I'd expect. But $60, okay, whatever. Final conclusions, this is a great watch for the money, right? Because it's got a nice movement, a nice size. It's got good water resistance, good legibility, and really good finishing for the price point. And frankly, that price point is amazing. It's not quite to the levels of features you'd expect from higher-end Casios. The mineral crystal, whatever. Loud bracelet, loud ticking, and the Loom on it is just not great. But the thing is, again, $60. Now, for that kind of price point, you are generally going to be in kind of digital watches, something more like this, which, given, are great. They give you all the watch you could possibly need. I'm not saying anything otherwise. Or you're perhaps doing complete trash. You can find all kinds of fashion watches. You go to your local department store, and they'll have a whole table full of plastic that looks like metal-cased fashion watches for $60. Or you are in some kind of a other Prestigio sort of thing. You adore the Explorer watches. And the thing is, this is none of those things. This is actually a serious watch. This is a watch that if I see this on somebody's, and this is pretentious, but if I see this on somebody's wrist, I'd be like, oh, damn, you thought about your watch. Nice. Well done. This is a good choice here. There is something to be said for going a little bit higher, because if you go a little bit higher, you can end up with a solar movement, with an eco-drive style movement, and those can be nice because you will have, instead of a couple of years of battery life, you'll have a decade or two of battery life. And that's that can be a little bit nicer, and frankly, you'll get a little bit quieter tip. But the thing is, this is good. This is really good. And although it's probably not going to be your last watch, so do not get into watches, not even once, this provides a really excellent choice on the budget end for somebody who wants a watch that is well finished, that could feel at home even among higher end pieces. So if you're in the market for a nicely done watch, you're not looking to pay a ton of money, then this guy could be quite edifying, edifice, for your collection. There you go. Hope this has been interesting, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.